listening to Surviving Parenthood, the parenting podcast, the podcast which aims to challenge the one-size-fits-all parenting story. I am Sam, and I am forever curious about how parents survive modern-day parenting. Today, we are talking to Andy Hobson, a very well-known kids meditation teacher and father to two young boys. So, Andy, how old are your boys?
So I've got a little boy called Finn, and he's 4. And then another little boy called Leo, and he's almost 2. He's 2 in a few weeks.
Oh, so you're really in the thick of it then?
I am. Look at me. I'm not surviving parenthood at all. I don't know why I'm here.
This is a good title for your story. Thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell me a little bit about your parenting setup at home? So obviously you've got Finn, Leo. Are they at preschool? Are they at home? What's the setup?
So yeah, they're both at nursery at the moment. So they go there 4 times a week,
Okay.
and then I look after them half a day on a Friday, and then Mummy looks after them half a day, and then we try and work around it all. And then Finn's starting school soon, so that's just a whole new thing to navigate, really. But that's our setup at the moment.
So Finn will be starting in September, will he?
Yeah.
Oh, good luck to him. Can you tell me, as we like to start the podcast with sort of something funny about your home life, or a funny parenting story, or a parenting fail that's a bit memorable? Can you tell me a bit about one of those?
Every day is is comedy.
Yeah.
So there's one fairly recent one that is kind of funny because I kind of studied in the psychotherapy world as well. I've always got that hat on. I'm always trying to connect with their emotions and stuff, being trying to be the good parent. So for his last birthday, he got a helium balloon, as you do, as most kids get them.
Yeah.
And he had a little Spider-Man figure. No, it was a bus driver, actually. I tell you the wrong story there.
Yeah.
It was a bus driver, and he decided to tie it to the helium balloon so that the bus driver could fly, and it was great. And he was obsessed with this thing. He still remembers it, actually. He still talks about this story. He remembers it very well. So we left the balloon around the house, and we left it by the back door for a bit at one time. And then, as you'd imagine, a big kind of wind came in and it blew the balloon out of the door. Your worst nightmare.
Oh, no.
You saw the helium balloon fly up into the sky with his bus driver attached. And we didn't laugh at the time, but he was very upset. And we had to run out the front to see where it was going, and he wanted to basically run down the street to try and get it. And I said it's going to go miles. So he's very upset, and then I kind of saw his sad. I thought let's kind of explore it and connect with his emotions. So I said, you're feeling sad. Where do you feel sad? And he pointed at his tummy, and I was like, oh, your tummy's sad.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, but I really miss him too. And I was like, oh, you miss him as well. And I was like, great, I'm exploring this with him. We're connecting. And he said, and I said, oh, where do you miss him then? In your tummy, in your head. And he's like, the bus that the driver belonged to was down on the floor, and he pointed at the bus. He said, I miss him there in the driving seat. It's kind of obvious. It's
like a really literal.
Yeah. I know. It's like, what are you talking about? Stop trying to therapize me. He didn't say that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, I love that. Do you think sometimes I think my two are a little bit like, they eye roll quite a lot about the things that I come out with. I think when you are a therapist and when you have your therapy hat on, you feel like an obligation to, explore their emotions and, make sure that they don't get repressed or anything. So I feel like sometimes it's a bit like, Mum, just back off. I'm just, do you find that or?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they're still at the age I don't do it too often, but they do. They do sense when you're starting to kind of go into that thing, and they just most of the time they don't even listen to me. They just you're saying, oh, how do you feel about that? It's like, Daddy, can I get some more pirate treasure today? And you're like, you're not even listening to me at all.
Yeah.
But I know a good therapist, a friend of mine, whose kids are a bit older, and he's got this voice that he always does when he starts to kind of connect with, oh, how do you feel? And they hate it. They go, Dad, don't do the voice. Stop the voice.
I think it's that sort of slightly monotone therapist voice, isn't it? Like, and tell me how you feel about that. I know that my little girl, whenever I start sort of trying it on, she's just like, I don't want to tell you, because I probably just do it too much. But I don't know. It's probably better that way, isn't it? Than not asking at all.
We try.
Yeah, exactly. I've been stalking you, Andy, for the last 48 hours. I don't know how you feel about that. But I fell down an Andy Hobson rabbit hole of information. Do you want to know what I found?
I've put there's a lot, but yeah, tell me what.
There
Yeah,
is a
tell me
lot.
your stalker findings.
My stalker findings are as follows. So you used to be in a band called The Departure. You played around the world and festivals like Glastonbury Bee Festival, and you had support slots with Duran Duran and the Manic Street Preachers, and you toured with the Killers. You managed a school therapy service helping children affected by poverty, drug addiction, neglect, domestic violence, and foster care issues. I have counted these. You had 23 other jobs in total. And the one that most people will know you from is obviously your platform on Insight Timer and being a meditation on there. And you have an amazing 5 million plays on there. I mean, that's incredible, isn't it?
It is amazing. It feels like this is your life. That's not on anymore. But yeah,
you're showing your age there.
It is amazing. I think I've done a lot of different things. As people do, finding their way in life, and I think kids are going to have a job. Finding what they're going to do, and I hope that no one has as many jobs as I had. But it's amazing because Insight Timer, I joined at a time when it was a very basic app, and there's another guy who owned it at the time called Brad.
Were you there when Brad was there? Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it looked like it'd been made in 1991. The first kind of, and then it got taken over. But I just put a few meditations up there just because I've been told about it. Actually, funny enough, the .B mindfulness in schools training, they kind of mentioned it. Oh, that's a good place to listen to meditations as well. So I put them up, and then they just really connected with people. I kind of thought I'd put some music underneath as well.
Yeah.
And they all came from practices that I'd kind of drilled myself. There's so many meditations out there. I mean, Insight Time is just an incredible library.
Yeah.
But when I learned, I think I had one CD I found from the Buddhist monk, and I used to just listen to that over and over. So all these meditations just came from stuff I'd found in that. And of course, it's got the kind of the mindfulness underneath it. But it's just really the things I found most helpful. And then suddenly people connected with them. And it was lovely. It's such a lovely space Insight Time. It's just everyone's positive, and then the feedback was it was all free at the time. The feedback was the currency. You're like, you had these lovely comments, and then obviously the app's grown so much more from there.
Yeah,
and I just love the fact that I can bring together that kind of passion of what I talking to people, sharing what's changed for me in life, and then writing music for it as well, which is kind of the unsaid and the bit that sometimes meets those places our words don't go.
Oh, that's lovely. So that's how we know each other, isn't it? Through the Insight Timer app. I think I joined maybe a year after you. Maybe it was 2 years, but it was in the early days when everything was putting it out for free and just seeing where it all went. But it is such a lovely community, and I'm so sort of grateful to be a big part of that. So yeah, no, and the feedback, there's such a generous lot, aren't they? They're always so positive about everything you put on there. So yeah, it's really lovely. I'm glad that you've done so well on there. So
you too.
Oh, thank you. I do actually have 1 million more plays than you. I don't know if that's a good time to drop it in.
Really? Excuse me? Unbelievable. 1 million more plays?
Yeah, I checked this morning. I'm at 6 million.
I'm going to interview you instead. I'm not doing the interview anymore. You've got more plays. But we released courses at the same time, which is lovely as well. We both kind of released this new thing because they introduced courses, and it was so nice to have other teachers because, it's strange because you're a bit on your own sometimes as a teacher, but there's a little kind of under community there as well.
Yeah.
6 million?
Yeah, I know. But you know what? I think it's lovely because even though I've never actually spoken to you, obviously we've been texting and that kind of thing, but I do feel very connected to you just because we were in it together from the beginning. So I feel like that, even though we haven't actually chatted, it hasn't got in the way of things. So tell me a bit about how you manage the transition between being a drummer in a band, the world of music, to then transitioning to the world of meditation and mindfulness.
How long have we got? So my dream was to be a drummer in a rock band, and I was very lucky to get that dream. I joined a band. I went to a kind of geeky drumming school. We all practiced for hours a day. I lived with drummers, and we just talked about drums. It was wonderful. And then, a year later, I did a bit of session work and a few bits and bobs, and then I found a band on a website called MySpace, which I think is still around.
Yeah.
And I just thought they had something, and I got in contact. They lived in Northampton, of all places, and I was in London, and I was like, oh no, they're in the wrong place. Anyway, I got on a train and I went to visit them, and I just thought they had something. And then they mentioned at the end, oh yeah, we've got some interest from, major record labels, which everyone always says. And then they did. And, 3 weeks later, we had Parlophone, coming to see us at showcases. And then I kind of quit my job, which was meter reading for Thames Water at the time. And I went to sleep on the singer's floor for a few months, and I had to still pay rent in London because I couldn't get out of my contract. And I'll try and keep this a bit shorter.
No, I like it.
And then I got my dream. So we kind of got flung into this thing. Like, I think our second tour was with the Killers, doing a UK tour when they released their first album. And, we got, because it was a big label, all the money behind it, we kind of got all these great slots and things at festivals. And but then there was something kind of always missing in it. I always felt at the beginning, I thought I was kind of proving myself as a drummer, and because they were all school friends as well, so I was kind of trying to fit in. And as the kind of all that the music industry brings, all the talk, all the hype, all that kind of carried on, and I started to feel a little bit kind of dissatisfied with it all, and just thought, this is my dream, but I'm just not enjoying it. It could be the music, but I think it's something else. I think, this is it, but it's not. And so, in the time we had some time off now and again to write, and I found a local Buddhist. I started reading philosophy books first of all with a bass player. The guys used to go out after gigs and do the usual drinking and stuff, and me and bass player used to sit in a hotel and either watch Blue Planet, David Attenborough, or we just talk about philosophy and that kind of stuff. And then it kind of fitted in with like Buddhism. I was kind of interested in religions, and so I joined a Buddhist center and started doing a course with them. And they'd send me cassette tapes. Even though we had the technology for better, I think it's a mini disc and CDs, sent me cassettes, and I used to listen to them on the tour bus. And it was all about a different way of being in the world, and what lies beyond our material understanding of everything, and what are we, big questions. I loved it, absolutely loved it. I just enjoyed meditation and having this space, and we'd do shows. And so they used to call me a closet hippie in the band because I kind of didn't talk about it much. It's like, oh, where's Andy off to? He's off gone to do another retreat. And so then it ended, the band kind of, we didn't make a great second album, and I actually left earlier. And then 2 weeks later, I was working in a call center for Mothercare, selling baby accessories. And it was around Christmas time. It was a really tough time because it's on this kind of training estate in Northampton off this big roundabout. And I was just like, what have I done? And I was like trying to get babies' names right for baubles that they wanted to put on Christmas trees. I was just, and a few weeks later, I'd been playing in Spain, and with things like sitting in a hotel in Osaka with Slash from Guns N' Roses, and I thought, what's happened to me?
Oh, wow.
And so, but then my spiritual practice kind of went to the side a bit because I kind of just so lost in that. And but it's always kind of a thread. And then I moved back to London desperately to try and find another band or try and get more session work, and I got some success, but nothing like that. And then I started to find a lot of anxiety, and then turned to panic attacks, and then depression always kind of follows on. And I thought, I've got to do something with this. So I went on antidepressants as well. And then I started to move back into meditation. And at the time, I found the kind of the religious side of Buddhism and what they taught, and the practical side didn't quite meet with how I was feeling. And then, of course, I came across mindfulness, which was kind of an aspect of Buddhism, but without the religion, very practical, very just down to earth, meeting what's there. And that really resonated. And I used that, and I did a mindfulness-based stress reduction course. And I just kind of, what I always do, I just fall into it. I just made it a very big part of my life. I meditated for kind of 40 minutes a day. Not saying you have to do that, but that's what I needed. And slowly I started to feel better, and slowly started to not get so lost in my narrative of being a rock star and now having lost everything. And then lovely things happened. I just started to settle down a bit and start working my way towards other jobs and start to study psychotherapy. And I had a friend that worked for this charity called Kids Company, which has worked with really vulnerable children and families, and it's no longer in London. Sadly, it closed down. And during that time, it's a very long story. Have I still got time?
No. Yeah,
I worked in charities.
absolutely.
So I always worked in charity. I thought, I don't want to work in the corporate world. So I worked in charities, and I found, I went from a music charity to it was all temping work while I tried to figure out my music career. Then the Royal Horticultural Society, which is, I did the Chelsea Flower Show and all the VIP breakfasts for them. And then the NSPCC, where I really kind of discovered working with children. And obviously I was in a fundraising team, but I really was very shocked about the amount of trauma that kids experience and how many children die in the care of a parent or carer. And then I worked for a volunteering charity, and that's where I kind of started to think about volunteering and finding something new through volunteering. So I started to volunteer for Kids Company, doing little drumming workshops in one of their centres where they, kids go after school to have food because there wasn't enough food. It's ridiculous in this world we live in. And then I just kind of stayed in contact with the charity and just said, I'm not qualified, and carried on studying. In the meantime, I'd had enough of fundraising and I wanted to work with my hands again. So I got a job in a bike shop and I managed this bike shop bonkers. There are people out there riding bikes that I've built, and I just feel bad about that. But I was trained a little bit. Same with the gardening. I did gardening anyway. So when the guy that owns WeTransfer has a bike that I built. If he ever watches this, he might want to have it fixed. He came. The
guy that owns WeTransfer.
Yeah, he came.
Oh.
They're quite fancy bikes, so we did branded bikes and stuff like that. Anyway, somehow I became a cyclist enthusiast, and I even managed to get on the front of London Cycling magazine. I don't know how that happened. Honestly, I've had a weird time. So then a job came up at Kids Company working with the schools team, and I kind of embarked on some training to do that. And somehow I managed to talk Camilla Batman-Gellich, who's the founder of Kids Company, into giving me a job there. And so from working in a bike shop, I was working in a school managing a therapy service with trainee therapists. I was luckily very supported by senior therapists and in terms of referrals. But then I took on more training in child psychotherapy with in the art psychotherapy world, a really wonderful training place was one called IATE. But Kids Company started to develop their own course. Someone called Joe Cornell, just infinitely wonderful person who's just dedicated to this world, particularly with vulnerable children. I did some amazing training that just opened my mind to how to use art, how to use music working with children, how to give them a voice through something they're familiar with rather than talking therapies. And it was wonderful. And then it was a very demanding job. I did it for 5 years, and we worked with social services, police, and some of those kids' lives. There were children in very rich parts of London where the houses were being broken into, and gangs were coming in, and children with siblings in prison, and it was really shocking world. It's funny what we're not aware of is going on now, and obviously with COVID, this stuff's probably been ramped up a million times. And so it's the most meaningful, most amazing, wonderful job. I worked in a team of 30 people. And at that time, I started doing some mindfulness. So I did sessions with kids as well, mentoring, and I had support with that, weekly support with a psychotherapist to kind of make sure I did the best I could, obviously, with those kids. And there weren't enough therapists, so I often offered a holding space for those kids waiting to have therapy, which often ended up turning to be kind of more of a permanent thing because we never found the right person. And then I started bringing mindfulness in very unsuccessfully. The kids, as schools do, they give you the kids that really are going to struggle. I had a lot of kids with ADHD that were all together, which is never that easy. It's easier one-to-one. But what I found with the mindfulness was that it didn't matter if they meditated. It was that you were there for them and you were present with them. And they were being heard and they were being accepted for what they were, which is part of mindfulness. I think with kids, people often want the pictures you see of kids meditating and calmly. Oh, that's working, that's doing it. It's not. It's what kids need is love and attention, and that was wonderful. And I had some meditations on Insight Timer already. Then I think I've jumped around a bit, and I kind of wanted to do something for the kids as well. And so I started to kind of write down some ideas for a course or something that would support children. And then created a course for Insight Timer along those lines as well. And in the meantime, my kind of adult courses were kind of building. And then I kind of got an offer from a publisher of writing quite a few courses for Insight Time and for their platform. It all fell through in the end, but I'd quit my job in the school. In the end, I kind of said, this is what I want to do, while still doing some stuff with kids, but doing something more focused on that. But luckily at the time, Insight Time had started to begin to monetize certain aspects of it. And I just made enough to kind of transition to do that. And then my income's been really good from there since. And it's enabled me to try new stuff. So I've done a bit of volunteering in a local school. And I will say, I didn't go very well. But this is how we learn. They gave me some kids that were all really struggling, and I thought it was wonderful, but you have to have a good dynamic, and that's important. I think anyone trying to integrate mindfulness with adults or children and they think they're failing, it's often, you kind of have to learn with the group. And so those sessions ended up being more music and more dancing and stuff. And I think I'd like to do a course on that as well, because we get kids to sit still a bit too much these days. That's my story. I think now, and here I am with kids, knackered, with a coffee that I've not drank yet, but that's it.
Oh, that's such a cool story. I've been hanging off your every word. I don't know what my next question will be. I think I need to know next how you actually manage that, being a working dad. I know that they're in preschool some of the time, nursery some of the time, but how do you manage that, sort of the juggling aspect of things?
I'm very lucky that I work at home a lot of the time still. Since COVID, my school's work kind of closed for a bit. I was about to start working with teenagers, and we had a big project in Brixton, and that kind of stopped just as I'd done about 2 sessions, and then I was going to create something. So I work at home, and I manage it by being as flexible as possible. And sometimes I have to work in the evenings in order to kind of get things done, which I accept. I don't think that's a good or a bad thing. I think you have to just go, I've got to get this done. And then when I'm with my kids, obviously I give them as much as I can, and I try not to. I think when you've got young kids, there's always the morning and then the evening. You're always trying to get them to somewhere. I need to get you to nursery, and I think you always feel a bit guilty. Like, I've rushed them all out and now I miss them. And they come home and it's like I've got annoyed with them and making their food, and they've not done what I wanted, and now I miss them. Now we're all asleep. And so I'm trying my practices to try and honour my work time, but also give them my best when I see them and save a bit for them as well, because when we're tired, I feel myself just rushing them through, have your cereal? Okay, right, we've got to do teeth. Da, da, da. And so part of it is saving a bit for them each day. However hard I work, I always think I need to save a bit. I need to, even if it's in the afternoon, I'm feeling a bit tired, and I think, I'll take the gas off a little bit when I'm working so that I've got more. Not always. I'm not saying that I could do the perfect parent. Sometimes
No,
I pick him up and I'm already shouting at Finn, let's get out of the car, don't climb on the seats. All the rest of it, like any other parent. But it's exhausting, and you've got to accept that. And you just, every day you just drop my standards a little bit more. You should see our house. It's a complete mess. I'm trying to change their rooms around at the moment, and it's just, they're moving in together. I'm dreading it. The big move. Bunk beds arrived. I've got to build it.
Oh no, how are they going to get on? Do they get along well, your two? Or?
They do. They're so sweet. I have to say that they hug each other and kiss each other all the time.
Oh, that's so lovely.
But Leo gets annoyed with Finn because he's boisterous, and they do get on. But I think they're going to wake each other up every morning, and their sleep's been pretty bad. Like both of them haven't been great sleepers.
Yeah,
and that's one thing that it's been really hard because Leo's only getting to the age he's sleeping through a lot better now. Most of the time you're sleep deprived, and to try and work and trying to make stuff happen and to get along as well in your relationship with your partner and stuff, and not be horrible and not ignore them because you're so tired is really, really hard. And then again, it's like there's a lot of acceptance in that and just going, well, this is where I'm at and this is how I feel, and I can't concentrate on this piece of work because, and then it takes that extra edge off. It means you can do your work badly, but you're not punishing yourself for it, saying I should be doing better. You're just doing it badly, and that's all right.
Yeah, it's just keeping an eye on that negative self-chatter, isn't it? How we treat ourselves is so fundamental to the resources that we have for others. I mean, I completely appreciate the, my son is 7 and he still gets in bed with us, which is just, I mean, I thought I'd never say that as a parent because you think by the time, 1 or 2, you'll have them sleeping through the night, but that's never actually happened for us. So I feel like I've sort of racked up a 7-year sleep debt, even though it's fine because he's not like a baby where they're crying or anything, but it's just the awareness that he's there, or him coming into the room and just not having a solid night's sleep. That over a long period of time, it does build up, doesn't it? But,
sleep debt, I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
And them sleeping in with you as well, and after getting to Finn's bed, quite often he comes in.
Yeah.
And he's been dribbling all over his pillow, and you're like trying to find a space that's not wet. It's low. It's really low.
It is so low. Oh, my son's got this thing with his legs where it's like he's constantly swimming water. He's quite a restless. No, he's not restless. He's content within himself, but he's just someone that has to be doing something, moving his body at all times. So even in his sleep, he's sort of pushing up against me, which is just, at 3 o'clock in the morning, completely agonising. But
that's exactly the same as Finn. He's always kicking.
Yeah,
and right next to you. Yeah, I think our kids would get along actually.
Yeah,
Finn is exactly like that. He's always looking for something, and in his sleep, his little legs are going against you, and you're like, "Can you do it over there?" And he finds his way back.
Just an entire bed completely would be best there. But
for fun videos, activities, educational content, and much, much more, head to Twinkl Kids TV. Our YouTube channel is packed with ideas to make surviving parenthood a little easier and a lot more entertaining. That's Twinkl Kids TV. Take a look today.
So just in terms of any families listening, any parents listening, that there'll be people out there that don't really understand what mindfulness is even. So sort of starting at the very basics, how would you describe mindfulness, and how do you feel as though it would be beneficial for families?
So mindfulness has got so many definitions now, and there's different versions.
Yeah.
For me, I see mindfulness more as being aware of like your states, your emotions, and starting from that place and checking in with yourself more often, and then being kind to yourself. I think that's really it. I used to think it was being present. It is being present, but it's being present not in a way that's people will always use being present as a measuring stick, I think, with mindfulness. Oh, I'm not mindful enough. I'm not in the present moment. Mindfulness is about being present and living in the moment, which is all there is. There is a past and there is a future. I think parents live often, in the future, wanting to get their kids a bit older. When they're a bit older, they'll be like this and like this. And then in the past, there's either a joyful feeling when the kids are old. Oh, I wish they were little ones again. And I could have been a better parent. I've let them down on that, because we had to work and do this. And so we're always in that space, and it's not, it's no good for anyone, not for our kids. And I like the idea of mindfulness just being always a time to go, oh, here I am, beginning again. I'm not in the past. Whatever has happened is fine. I did my best with what I had. My kids are, I'm noticing. So there's a noticing. I'm noticing that I want my kid to get older, or I'm noticing that next week's, or when we go on holiday, it'll be better. Oh, that's interesting, and that's enough. I'm noticing that. But what about, then you kind of forget a choice. I can be here though. And they're here and they're smiling, and, you know, and it's just a relief to know that we can choose to be in the moment, but also that to be in the moment doesn't mean you have to kind of beat yourself up for getting it wrong. You can be in the moment and shouting at your kids, but you've got that intention to be aware that you're shouting at them. And then it's all about rupture and repair. You know, the mindfulness for me is the rupture. You know, you get it wrong, you shout at them, you react like that, you feel bad. You internally know that feels bad. You can see their little face. Then you know to repair, and that's all we can do with rupture. And the healing happens in that, and that's a good enough childhood. I think the bar set so high for parents now.
Yeah.
So mindfulness is just a way to give yourself permission to be imperfect, but also choose your moments and choose to listen to yourself more often, and not your voice, but listen to your heart and listen to what your body's telling you.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, I think that sort of gentle observing, that gentle noticing of, even though we're very aware that we may be not getting it right at that time, it's just checking in with yourself. And I think there is so much strength in that vulnerability, saying, actually, I didn't get that right, and saying that to your kids, you know, I got that wrong and I'm sorry that I got that wrong, and here's what I can do to help redeem that or amend that in any way. I really love that definition. So, do your own children, how do you incorporate that into your family unit?
Ask my wife, really. Just say, he doesn't do any mindfulness. He's literally the worst parent. He shouts at them all the time. It's so funny. You know, when you're a teacher, you kind of have to keep up this sort of, I'm always mindful. My children come down to sit at the table, and it's being with the chaos. And Finn, I wouldn't expect Finn to meditate.
No,
for starters. They're so young, and funnily enough, in lockdown, his nursery asked me to do a meditation session for them on Zoom. And I said, all right, I'll do it. I did it. And we just did eating a cake, imagining that, and a few other things. But really, it's you're always modeling that mindfulness when you're listening, and like listening to them, I think, and finding those quite, bedtimes and things, when you're doing stories, even when you've had enough of those same stories again. Finn's got a book called Follow Finn. I don't know where we got it from, but it's not even a storybook. It's just to find little things. And I swear I've read it with him every night for about 8 months.
Wow.
But you have to make that time and have to listen. And I sometimes bring up things in the day. He's only 4, so you can't kind of, most things just happen and they're gone. But sometimes, you notice something that kind of affected him. And he brings something up about something that happened. And then he'll go, yeah, you shouted at me then. And, I felt bad, and I was a bit upset. And he says, Daddy, you just have to tell me. And I say, but you don't listen. and we kind of do, and we equalise, we're equals, and I say, look, I'll try not to shout. I just want you to listen. I know it's not going to make any difference, but it's just the fact we've had a little chat and we've connected and had a hug. Physical contact, of course, is always there. But yeah, I think as a parent, there's a lot in just accepting how you are, and you do your best to change things, but perfection isn't there. And I thought, I'm going to be great. Everyone's like, you're going to be such a great parent, Andy. You're so calm, and then they trigger your stuff. So you've got to be aware that as a parent, all your stuff, all the stuff that you've maybe held down from childhood, and going a bit deeper here, they will get it. So mine, I noticed that I'm not a very angry person, and I think my parents didn't really let anger out very often, which you can see as a good thing. Also, it's not very healthy. Anger's got to be expressed. So it's like all the seasons. We need all the seasons, and so kids obviously bring out my anger. I get more angry with my kids, and I think, well, that's awful. I don't want my kids to be the place that my anger goes to. So I've been working with that when I get angry, and noticing the reaction and taking a pause and a breath and going, you're angry, but it's not about them. It's they've triggered something, and so they're little teachers, really.
Yeah.
again, and then we can only explore it. Oh, I was really angry with you then, that happened. And I do the body thing. So, where you're angry, but we do what animal is it? What animal is it? It's a tiger. And that doesn't, it just takes them off into their own little space, and they like to explore it that way anyway.
Yeah, so it's using their imagination to explore how they feel. And I think as well, when you're in the field, I definitely struggle with imposter syndrome. I think when you're educated on a subject, the well-being subject, and then things aren't really going very well at home, which happens to me on a daily basis, I do feel like, I should know better. That's probably my internal talk. How can you know all of this and still not be able to exercise that with your children? Sometimes I do, but every day I don't. So yeah, it is just sitting with it. And I guess as well, what you say about the, parenting being a very triggering situation, that children will tap into your stuff like nothing else. If you think you were sort of quite, together when you have a child, then that just doesn't quite go the way, planned. And I feel like when they're triggering me, I think there is a lot of, power in just saying, where is this coming from? What's my conditioning? What are they making me feel? And where does that belong? Rather than just pushing it down and saying, I just want to crack on and get them to their final destination, which is usually bedtime. I do feel like just getting to know yourself and having that self-awareness can be helpful when it comes to how to talk to them, how to treat them.
Definitely. That's it really. A lot of stuff happens in the moment, and we feel like we failed because we've reacted already. It's like it's too late. I've already done that. But normally, like you say, they meet your stuff, they meet your energy, and then you take that energy. And parenting's so tiring. We don't have time to really do it all the time. But when I have energy and when Finn's just going playing up, he's got so much energy. Like the two boys and he's just playing up and he's on one and he wants to kick you or something. And then you can just be fun and play with him and tickle him. And when you're not really really tired, you can do that. And then it takes him out because you're kind of meeting him at his level. And that's another thing that's I've learned that I don't always get right, because a lot of parents, when their kids are kind of kicking off, they try and talk calmly. That's what we're taught. Talk calmly, calm them down. It's all right, just calm down. And I do this still, even though I know that doesn't always help. But really what we should be doing is meeting them at their level, up there, because they're, there, and you can talk in that voice. Wow, you're really angry. Whoa.
Yeah.
You want to kick me, don't you? And then you kind of join them. You're like, oh, here. And then you can bring them down from there. Otherwise, you're kind of isolating them, leaving them on their own because they're up there losing it. And you're just calmly going, what you're doing up there.
Yeah.
And I forget it more often than I do it, to be honest. But when I remember, it works because you meet their energy and then you kind of with them.
Yeah.
And you're attuned to them. And then you can work with that. But again, it's when you have that energy, it's all great saying this stuff, but you got to listen to what you need as well. It's like when you're really tired, you just have to do your best. And, and if it's calmly saying, please, can we just go to bed?
Yeah.
Then that's all right.
Yeah, it is all right. And it is going to get that way. And I remember when I was a therapist, and one of the first things that my supervisor said to me was that children need to learn how to model anger. And as I say that, it feels quite obvious now, but at the time it was such an epiphany moment. I was like, how amazing is that? Not coming from a family that did model anger appropriately. I then, really took that on board and attempt to transfer that onto my own kids. But as you say, quite often it is, just a get into bed screaming match. But that anger does need to be expressed. And, their poor little amygdalas, the brain that are on absolute high alert, can't possibly meet you at a calm, rational, let's talk this through kind of moment. They need to fully ride that emotional wave before they can come down and be more lucid, I guess.
And they snap out of it so quick.
Yeah.
You think this is in for the long haul, and then suddenly they're just like, one little thing changes, and they're like, all right, can we do this? And they go quiet. And it's, as adults, we don't often do that. We hold on to it all and it carries on. But kids are quite good at just going, well, that's over now. I'm feeling better. I'll just carry on. Nothing happened. No big deal.
Oh, yeah. I need to take a leaf out of their book. I can hold on to a grudge for 2 or 3 days. I'm really, really hardcore when it comes to that kind of behaviour. Okay, so tell me, Andy, do you have any quick techniques? Perhaps if there are families or adults that are looking to incorporate a short meditation or mindfulness technique into their daily practice, what would you recommend? And if you don't have any, don't worry, but I'm sure you do.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Don't do anything.
Nothing.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So I'd say, I think for meditation, the great thing about meditation and, is that you kind of find your own way with it, and what works for you and what worked for someone else is not the same. So some people think, oh, I just can't do this because it doesn't work. But it just means there's probably a different practice you can use. For me now, when I first learned mindfulness, I was more about, I'm a bit of a sciencey person. I like to have factual, like neuroscience. I really like that. That's what kind of got me into mindfulness. I like the fact that you're changing your brain when you do stuff. So I was a bit more the kind of what you say, the wisdom side of things. This is this because of this and this and this. But as my practice has changed, I've been more into the kind of connecting with like vulnerability and kind of connecting with your heart. Heart doesn't mean much to a lot of people, but it connecting with just being here, like meeting yourself where you're at, rather than just trying to be on your breath. So I think there's two things that most people seem to pick up well as a short practice. So one's pausing for 1 minute and just noticing your breath, closing your eyes if you want to, just noticing your breath at your nostrils. And just that is really powerful. It seems so simple. We want it to be really complicated. Oh, give me the super duper magical mindfulness thing that's going to get me all present and calm. But actually, it's just really dropping. It's the intention behind it, really dropping into it. Like it's the most important thing in your life, which it is keeping you alive. But just be on your breath for a minute and either noticing both your in-breath and your out-breath and the pause between them, or just noticing your out-breath on its own. Or you can even count. Sometimes people just find it counting your breaths good. Again, there's no like great practice. You're not a learner if you're counting them. You're not advanced. It's whatever works. But it's that intention to pause. Even if you think it's a ridiculous thing. Oh, is that it? I'm not doing that. And the practice I use, I used to do that sometimes. When I was working at offices or in a bike shop, even I'd just sit and I'd have my eyes open. I'd just notice my breath for a bit. Like, internal dialogue, oh, this is really hard, I'm still stressed out. Noticing that you've got anxiety somewhere and going, oh, okay, we're just going to leave that, let it be. It's about letting stuff be, because judgment comes in when we stop. So that's one. The quick one I do now, because I have kids and meditation goes out the window quite often, or it's very short, or it gets replaced with some more physical activity. I just sit, and when I'm feeling a bit like I'm rushing through work or I'm a bit stressed out, or I just put my hand on my heart like that and just fit. And it seems that it's that contact, and immediately, for some reason I cannot explain, it gives me a sense of being planted and here and letting yourself off. There's a lot of things that happen. It's really strange. There's actually some science behind our heart and what it sends out, and whether I don't know how much it's still in stages of being discovered, I think, at the moment. So I don't always talk about it with any authority, but I know what I feel and I can talk from that. And that just gives me permission to be where I am and slows me down. And you do it 100 times a day. Anytime you just like there and just feel your hand on your heart and breathe and just smile back at life and just think it's ridiculous. All this fuss we make every day. If you want a mantra, you just say to yourself, this is ridiculous. This is whatever I'm feeling now is ridiculous. What am I doing? What am I trying to get to? Why am I working? Or why am I, getting annoyed by kids? And it's just that little smile at life, and that's it.
Oh, that's so amazing. I love the idea of letting yourself off the hook as well. I'm going to really take that with me after today. And I really want to be selfish and just continue talking to you for the next 3 hours. But I'm aware that there's parents out there that have probably not got, 3 hours to shoehorn into their day to listen to our chat. But So thank you so much for talking to me today. And I know that you've got 2 courses out on Insight Timer, Learn to Meditate and Find Your Peaceful Place, which are going extremely well. And you've had thousands of participants and amazing feedback. So congratulations. And anyone that wants to know more about you, they can go on the Insight Timer app and look at your page there. So how do you feel? Just one final question, if you don't mind, if you've got a little bit of time. Is that okay, Andy?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's fine.
I was just going to ask, in terms of our mental health problem at the moment, because obviously since COVID, we're having a rise in mental health issues. And, people are still having to go into isolation. There's still certain lockdown rules. So I'm wondering, I know that you've got some content coming out on loneliness, and I'm wondering how you feel that's going to take things post-COVID, how we can meet ourselves in a lonely state, and how we can perhaps improve how we feel about ourselves in these tricky times.
It's a big one. I'll try and keep it short. So yeah, I mean, there's a huge mental health issue in the whole planet now. Who knows where that's come from?
Mm-hmm.
The world's opened up, and I'm sure technology's got a huge factor in that, and pressure in schools and all the rest of it. And the thing, with loneliness, is that sense of our inbuilt conditioning of always needing to be more and getting somewhere else and being somewhere else, and being alone. I think for a lot of people is hard anyway, because we're so distracted in life. Busyness is actually quite addictive. Our body likes busyness because it feels like it's alive. Something's happening. You're watching a football match last night. It's like something's alive. Something's happening. We're here. We're together. Although we're not, you could be sat on your own. And as older people, elderly people, they have the radio on all the time, things like that, feel like they've got someone talking to them. That kind of feeling of being with someone. And so loneliness is huge. In fact, of having contact with other people and feeling that we exist in the world as well, really. So it's a difficult one, because I think, people that feel lonely, I think we are beings that need to have contact with people, but when we don't, and I think as you get older, your relationships and your support systems they change and they shift, and sometimes you get less. Whereas, it used to be that as you get older, you have more family around you, have more support, more care. It all comes in. Some cultures and traditions, elderly people are sacred. They're the center, and that's wonderful, and it's how it should be. But so with loneliness, it's about how learning ways to be alone and for it to be okay. If that's all, if you have to be alone, obviously it's about seeking as well, looking outwards. But there's ways to be alone and for it to be all right. Not saying we all need to sit on our own and meditate and just be alone and everything's going to be all right. But no, there's being lonely and being alone. And being lonely is kind of that lack, and alone is just alone. It's just and I've noticed in COVID now, my school stuff stopped. I'm more alone because you can feel alone in a family. When you feel like you don't fit in with your family, or all kinds of things can come up with being a parent. You can feel very alone and not heard, and all kinds of stuff. So this is where your practice of self-awareness and noticing your vulnerability. So with loneliness, is just noticing that vulnerability, and that's sometimes enough. And again, that heart practice, it comes back to this heart practice, but having that internal message of I'm enough that's something that's come up in the last couple of years. And I kind of wrote a course because I realized that was really such a key. It's so tiring to try and be something else all the time and try not to be lonely. Even I should have more friends as a narrative. You should have more friends. You should see more people. I'm quite an introverted person, actually, and I don't have loads of friends. I love my own company. Imagine hanging out with me all day. We've got to hang out with ourselves. That's it. It's me in there. It's not anyone else. And so it's about being in your own company and finding a way to be there and to find a resting place there, even if you're feeling anxious or vulnerable. or all the emotions that come up, sadness, all the stuff that, huge array of human experience. It's about giving yourself permission to be that wherever you're at. And without the story of I'm here because I'll be there because this is going to happen. I'm not getting it right because I've seen this on the internet, all the stuff that pulls us out. It's about holding your own space and beginning there and feeling what you feel and giving yourself permission, because one thing kids can teach us, if they're upset and they have a tantrum, they let everyone know about it. Whereas as we get older, we feel upset, we don't have a tantrum, we just go, I'm fine. And it's just something to help it. Yep. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm all right. Default answer, I'm all right, busy. It really like dying inside because your life feels like a mess. It's just at least being honest with yourself. You can put on your persona for other people. That's that's what we do to an extent anyway. But it's at least hold the space for yourself and be lonely and feel it and go, what's it like to be lonely, and what's lacking from that? These are quite deep things. Anyone's kind of listening that's never tried meditation before, think, oh, what are you talking about? but it's real. It's being real with yourself and recognizing that there's someone in there, and that essentially you are enough. You've arrived. You're where you should be. As a measuring stick to the rest of the world, then you probably feel like, no, I've not succeeded, or I've messed this up. All that stuff. But that's my thoughts, I guess.
Oh, yeah. So I guess in some ways we do need to play those social games, don't we? And we do need to, especially on the school run, it's, just be like, yep, see you later, busy, as you say. But and that's quite handy if you're trying to avoid certain people on the school run. But as you say, it's about being honest with yourself and sitting with how you feel without adding in an unhelpful or unwanted story or narrative. So that's a great answer, and thank you for that. And this time, I promise I will actually let you go.
That's all right. I'll just keep talking. I love this talking about this stuff. This is, I'm happy that anyone wants to listen to me.
Oh, you can tell that it's a passion of yours, and I've thoroughly enjoyed seeing you and speaking to you today. So thank you so much for being so funny and entertaining and easy to talk to.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you as well, and thanks for asking me to do this. I haven't done any interviews for a little while, and I always remember, I just love just talking about this stuff and meeting people who are interested and have something to share. Like what you have to share is amazing. We could do an interview for you and how you work with all this. Just like you've got such a broad experience, and then you bring your own thing to it, which is what it's all about. For everyone.
Oh, thanks for saying that. Okay, then. Wishing you lots of happiness and luck and wellness now and always. Take care.
You too.
Bye, Andy.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye.
Bye.